Welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Voices of Healing podcast. I'm your host, Tina Clark. Today's guest is Mary Beth Schrudder. She is a spiritual life coach, and her expertise is in the areas of addiction. And today we're going to start out with alcoholism. We might get into food and relationships. We'll see where we go. But I wanted to welcome Mary Beth to the show.
Thank you so much, Tina. Happy to be here.
So tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Well, my entire life, I feel like I kind of had this generalized anxiety, which stemmed from childhood, like all of us. Like a lot of people drink because they're anxious, right? And I definitely have those tendencies naturally, but then a lot of addictions born out of trauma. And we don't really know what trauma is until we're adults, right? Like, so my parents were divorced when I was only 5 years old, and that created a lot of anxiety for me. It's a big trauma for a kid because, like, when a parent leaves, what is that? That's an abandonment wound, right? So that's, I think, where a lot of my anxiety began at 5 years old. And I was always trying to find ways to self-soothe. So that's like a lot of people get into addiction because that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to find relief. We're trying to feel better. Innately, we know I am supposed to feel better than this. And so we're just searching for things, just how do I either numb myself out, escape my reality, push my feelings down that we don't want to deal with, right? So we're always trying to comfort ourselves. So there's no shame in it. We're just doing what we innately know we should be doing. We're supposed to feel better. And I can tell you, I had my first drink when I was 11 years old. And that was because, part of it was because I was a kind of a rebellious little brat, but I was on a vacation with a girlfriend and her parents were pretty chill, and they had put they had alcohol all over the kitchen counter. And we were just like, let's get into it. Like, they weren't home. We mixed a bunch of stuff together. And Tina, this is the first time I could tell you, like, I didn't feel anxiety in my entire life when and that's a big red flag. Like, you might end up having a problem with alcohol because I felt so relieved and so good. And, and I was just like, I didn't become a drinker at 11, but that was my first experience. Well, I couldn't get my hands on it, or I probably would have. But I did become a regular drinker at 14 because I had an older boyfriend, a couple years older only, but he had access to it. Same thing. His family was pretty, lenient, and they would let him drink. And then so I would drink with him and got pretty addicted. It became a regular thing at that time. So, I think the main thing is we're either, when we're filling a void, sometimes this is just how addiction gets started, but it usually does get triggered from something in childhood, and that can be different for everybody. And a lot of people don't even realize they had traumas. I used to say I didn't have any childhood trauma. And then when you do the shadow work and you realize all the stuff you've been pushing down in your subconscious mind, then you realize, oh my goodness, I just was one big dysregulated nervous system.
Yeah. Same with me. Like when I was younger, I thought, yeah, my childhood's great. My parents are great because that's your normal. Like you
Yes.
don't know any better. And then you get older, maybe by the time you're a teen, you start figuring out, wait a minute, something's off here. I really
Yes.
don't like this. I really don't like how my parent treats me, or, teen
I do
years.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't know how old you are, but I'm 50. And so I was raised in the 70s, and that was not exactly the most comforting decade to be raised. Like, we kind of raised ourselves back then. And, it was very interesting. But yeah, I was always felt this fear of abandonment, and this abandonment wound. And because I thought, man, if my dad can leave, my mom can leave too. Right. Like, it freaked me out. And so I just always was very concerned that was going to happen. I was pretty aware that I was dependent on my parents. Like I can't take care of myself. So it was scary to, that's when that shift happened energetically. I became this really fearful person. And until like, I swear until when I was drinking, I mean, a lot of people drink why? To soothe anxiety, for like social anxiety is a big one, right? And
Mhm.
so I started to just become, really close to my friends, and that anxiety went away, with alcohol. So that's what it does, is it makes us, less fearful. And then my friends kind of became my family too. I was feeling more independent, and that helped a lot too. But of course the alcohol was the main thing, and I just continued. Like my life was always included drinking. And you know how it is, society makes this normal. I didn't even
Yes.
know I had a problem because it's so glamorized, right? I'm just thinking, like, this is just what we do. Like, you don't go to a party and not have alcohol. Now I'm the weird one who
Yeah.
doesn't drink. Now I'm the oddball. And I fit right in before. And what do? We always compare ourselves to other people who drink more. We're not comparing ourselves to the people who don't drink. We're not comparing ourselves to people who drink less. And yeah, I was the one. I will tell you, there was a lot of red flags. I was the girl who's getting everyone to stay out later. Like if alcohol gives you energy, that's kind of a red flag, you guys. Because it did that for me, because it's a depressant, but it had the opposite effect on me. It gave me energy, and I'm trying to get everybody to, they're trying to pass out, and I'm like, no, come on, let's go to an after party. That's a big red flag. I did have a DUI at one point in my life, but I didn't think that was a big deal because everybody I knew had a DUI, right? And it's really easy to get one. Oh,
Wow.
that's the thing, is I didn't know that, by the way. It was after I got one. First, I was freaked out. I should tell it this way. Got arrested. I was freaking out. I was, how old was I? In my early 30s, and got arrested. I'm going through a divorce. So of course I'm like, things are wild at that time. And, but I go warn everybody, like, oh my gosh, you don't ever want this. It was horrible. And they're like, oh yeah, or I've had one, and so-and-so's had one. They all knew somebody who had one. And you kind of said, wow. And let's think about that. We surround ourselves with people who are are kind of like us, right? So I knew a lot of drinkers. I wasn't hanging out with sober people back then. And yeah, it was just, I had to do this 3-day getaway. It was no big deal. I mean, I went home the same night that I got arrested, and it just wasn't really a lot of consequence. So it was easy to kind of be like, oh, well, this is just a rite of passage. Everybody gets one. So,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
nothing. Yeah, denial is so crazy. It's a
Yeah.
strange psychological phenomenon. It is real. What do they say?
Mhm.
Denial ain't just a river in Egypt, right? So there was that. There was a lot of red flags. I would have a lot of anxiety in the middle of the night, and I didn't know that alcohol, of course,
Makes it worse.
yeah, and we start drinking and it soothes it at first, but it turns on you. It turns on you.
Mhm.
So, like, I would I would be up in the middle of the night with my heart racing. I didn't blame it on the alcohol. I didn't know what it was going on. And yeah, it destroys people. If you're passed out, you're not getting good quality sleep. And people have those watches now. They can kind of check their sleep, and they know, like, if you drink, and you can tell the difference between when you didn't drink and when you did. But yeah, so alcohol is a depressant. So our body's doing the normal thing that it should be doing to create stimulants to counteract that depressant. So that's what our body's doing. And what happens is, about 4 or 5 hours after that alcohol wears off, all we're left with is those stimulants that our body created. And that's why people wake up in the middle of the night with their heart racing, their mind racing, because they're overstimulated. The stimulants were already there, but the alcohol is no longer in your system to counteract that. So now you're just only feeling like anxious, and then the next day too. I call it hangxiety. A lot of people call it hangxiety. You just are just left with all this anxious feeling. Sometimes you did something stupid, said something stupid, and then you're thinking about all those things, like, who do I need to apologize to? But but yeah, that was a big deal. And when I really decided to quit was when, so I was already a life coach, and I was very functional. That's the crazy part, is running 2 businesses at the time, and I didn't really realize I had a problem. I decided to add a niche. Oh, let's do addiction recovery. I can help other people with addiction. I'm not an addict, but I'll help other people. Denial. And the more I'm learning about addiction, I'm like, "Oh no. I think I might have an addiction to alcohol." Like, it was very easy to see because a lot of people are just not aware what addiction is. It's not only at drugs and alcohol, it's overthinking and negative thinking. Those are addictions. Our thoughts, racing thoughts, that thought loop, negative thought loops that we get in, that's an addiction. One thought literally energetically attaches to another. I know you know this as a,
Hmm.
Reiki practitioner. And so those are addictions. Limiting beliefs are actually addictions. We just continue to think the same stuff over and over. We get addicted to the subconscious programming and patterns that we have. So we got to interrupt those patterns. But food was a big one for me. Big addiction. Same thing. We're trying to comfort ourselves. We're pushing our feelings down. We're escaping reality through food. Shopping. No one talks about shopping. That's a huge addiction, especially if it's you're spending more money than you can afford to spend. That can really mess people up, and people don't talk about that. Let's see
This
what
is
else.
why I shop at the thrift store.
Yeah, because you're like, I kind of have that tendency, which is great to notice. That's great. Self-awareness, Tina. Self-awareness is the number one spiritual thing. Like, people don't realize how spiritual it is, because so many people, just like I said earlier, they're walking around on autopilot, unaware, of their
like a
subconscious
like a
patterns.
zombie, like a zombie,
We
literally.
are. Yeah, got to
Just
bring that subconscious stuff to your conscious mind so we can heal it, right?
right. So, I'm curious, where did you grow up? In like a small town, or?
No. Okay. So I moved around a couple times. I'm in Cincinnati now, and that's where I lived when I was younger, Cincinnati area. Then moved to Houston, Texas for a long time. And then I'm back in Cincinnati, Ohio. But yeah, I've lived in Oklahoma. I've lived in Kentucky. But yeah, those are the 2 main places, is Texas and Ohio.
Yeah, I
And
remember, like, I mean, alcohol use and drug use is everywhere,
absolutely.
city, small towns. But I remember my dad's from a small town in New Hampshire. We would go there every summer. And I feel like a lot of it was boredom. Like, the kids would smoke weed and get high and drink out of boredom. But then again, in the city, I remember there were kids doing drugs that lived in our building. There were these 2 boys, and they were super cute too. And one of them just completely ruined his life with
Mm.
drug use. And his poor mom was very Catholic. She was actually my ballerina teacher.
Oh, wow.
So she's like this little tiny Spanish woman that was extremely scary, but her son had that problem. So, yeah, the whole culture of the US really pushes people to drink. It makes it cool. They're saying it's cool and necessary. And I don't know if you're a mom, but I remember becoming a mom and the pediatrician telling me to have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
I looked at her like she was nuts. I was like, this is not going to help anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't even go there with her, but I just ignored the advice. You
Mm.
know what I mean?
I would have
But
taken that advice and run with it. But you brought up an amazing point about the small town thing. I went to college part of the time in this small town in Oklahoma called Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And can I say a bad word, or is that not
yeah,
allowed?
go
Okay,
ahead.
because in order to tell you the motto of the town, because what you said, you nailed it. The motto was drink, drug, fucking fight, because everybody was so bored. I'm telling you, like, when you said that, I was like, that is a really good point, because that's why I said, can I say a bad word? Because everybody was so bored. That's what they would do. They'd get into that. And it was a college town. So it had this big NSU. It'd be funny if any of your listeners had heard of it, because most people haven't. It's like 2 hours outside of Tulsa, but it is known for that college. And yeah,
Like party school.
it
There are schools that are known as party schools.
yeah, but I was in like my early 20s when I ended up going there. And, I didn't go to college right out of high school. because I was just a rebel. And I was like, I'm not going. And my parents moved to Oklahoma. And I was like, no, I'm not going. I'm staying here in Houston with my friends, And then that's when I got really wild with alcohol. But yeah, so when I moved, it was just right up my alley to be there. I'm like, oh wow, all these fellow drinkers and everybody wanted to, again, just no clue. I'm completely clueless that this is not normal. Like, why do we need to always be, drinking? Like, and smoking weed and all that. Why are we always numbing out? Like, what are we running from? And it's a lot of it's we just don't like our reality. Like, think about video games. Like, how many I used to say that about kids, but there are so many adults just escaping from their life through video games, through pornography. That's another huge addiction. And that's
TV.
like, I mean, Netflix,
TV is an escape.
TV's a total escape. Netflix binging. What do you think you're doing? You don't think that's an addiction? Like it is. But I'm going to say, if you're trying to quit something like alcohol, we always need to replace an addiction with a healthier addiction. So I want to say, hey, if you need to binge Netflix while you're trying to quit alcohol or something else, go for it. Like anything better. We work our way up on this. Let's talk about our phones. Cell phones. These are a huge addiction. Scrolling addiction. We get addicted to validation. Like, oh, did I get any likes on Instagram? Did I get, like the checking, scrolling. And, sometimes I put my phone in another room because I catch myself. And that's the trick. I still have an addictive personality. That doesn't go away. What I've learned to do is manage it through my spiritual recovery work that I teach. So, but yeah, I will put my phone in another room when I catch myself doing this, got to interrupt those patterns. Even sports is a big addiction for some people, and it could really hurt families a lot,
And exercise can be an addiction.
Yeah, good things. That's a great point. Good things can turn to addiction. I actually did that. When I quit drinking, I decided to become a gym rat because I had all this extra time in my day. I'm like, holy crap, what do I do with myself? And didn't realize how much time I was like, I'm going to happy hour. And then, you can just waste a lot of time with alcohol. You really can. So I had all this time. So I decided to use that happy hour time and go to the gym. So I became a gym rat. And I did exactly what you said. Since I'm an extremist, I went overboard. It became an addiction, just like you're saying. And that's something, that balances out over time, but at the time that was good for me because what was the alternative, being at the bar, drinking with my friends, gambling and work. Those are two other ones that people don't think of. Workaholics are, it's not only men anymore. Now we got a lot of women, and it just is, our families do suffer. And then men are really good at telling themselves, well, this is, I'm taking care of my family. I'm taking care of my family. This is what I do. But there's so much more than bringing home a paycheck, okay, to take care of your family.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not fulfilling your children and your wife's spiritual needs, emotional needs, being present. And that's something that alcohol takes away from everybody, is our presence. We're not really present when we're drinking. And I am a mom. You said, I don't know if you're a mom. My son is about to turn 22. And so he grew up with me drinking until he was 16 years old. So and to be honest with you, Tina, part of the reason I didn't know I had a problem is because I was a lot of fun. I was a fun drinker, and he kind of took advantage of that. Like, he would say, oh, she gets more generous and I can get away with more stuff and things like that. And so he sort of liked it because, I wasn't a mean drunk.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like that at all. So that makes it more difficult. Also, like I mentioned, I'm running 2 businesses. I was highly functional, and I want your audience to know, like, you don't have to have any rock bottom in order to quit. You just have to want to improve your life. You want to level up. Like, I teach law of attraction. When I realized I had an addiction, I could not have any inner peace with drinking anymore because I knew it was bringing me down. I was aware. Suddenly I'm no longer in denial. I'm aware. Like, how can I be a life coach teaching people to live their best lives now that I'm aware that this is a low vibrational substance that's dragging me down, and that's the cause. That's the thing, that I'm waking up in the morning, I'm not feeling my best. I can't do that. I have to have integrity. I don't teach anything in my coaching practice that I don't do myself. Like, if I'm preaching it, I'm doing it. You know what I'm saying? So, and
Yes.
I couldn't live that way. So that was huge. And then actually I would say a big indicator that it was time to quit is because I was good at, we're going to talk about moderation versus abstinence. You got to decide, and we're back to self-awareness. Am I someone who can moderate or not? Because some people can. I'm not. I am not. Like I want the whole tray of brownies. I don't want just one brownie. It's delicious. I want, I can, I don't have a really good stop button. So it's not, like I said, I got the food stuff too. And then relationship addiction, toxic relationship addiction, like, or some people call it love addiction. I had all that stuff going on. If something's good, I want a lot of it, but that's kind of human nature, right? And some people are good at stopping themselves. They have that stop button. You have to look at yourself and am I an abstainer and I'm a moderator? I'm not a moderator. There's a saying, how is it? I think it might be Saint Augustine, Saint Francis, one of those, was where complete abstinence is easier than perfect moderation. Okay. For me, moderation was not easy. I could moderate several times in a row. Sometimes it's like 20 times in a row. I could like stop at 2 glasses of red wine. Red wine was my, that was my vice. But that 21st time, I'm going to overdo it, have a horrible, like just destroy myself. Like the next day I have clients or something and I'm like, oh my God, now I'm hungover with anxiety. My sleep sucked, my vibrations in the trash. So I could not, it was no longer worth that trade-off for me. I couldn't trust myself to stop because even though I could do it sometimes and have that control, I'm a badass at abstaining. Like I'm really good at, I'm an extremist. I'm an all or nothing person. So this self-awareness is about looking at yourself. Look at yourself. Can you, are you able to moderate? If you are, okay. Hey, is alcohol bringing me down or is it not? Hey, I don't say everybody needs to quit. It's just self-awareness, really doing that deep dive and looking at yourself and seeing, is it affecting you in a negative way? Because that's the definition of addiction. It's something that you cannot control that is affecting your life in a negative way. If it's not affecting your life in a negative way, don't call it an addiction.
I can't think of ways that alcohol would actually
be positive.
Be a positive activity.
I know it dumbs down our brain, and anyone who thinks it doesn't, you're lying to yourself. Nobody acts better on alcohol. Nobody does. But we can, I thought I was so funny, and it's like, I think maybe record yourself and see how funny you really are. Because like now that I'm going out, so I still have friends who drink and I still will hang out with them because I'm really over it. Like there is no temptation for me at all. But I watch people, I watch them, like they start out the night and then they're slurring and then, and they're telling the same stories over and over, the same jokes. And it's not making you better in any way, shape or form.
Yeah. I remember when I was younger, in my 20s, I like to go out dancing. So, in New York City, there's alcohol, there's drugs. And I knew people were getting high around me, but I just didn't like the way they behaved.
That's so great of you. Like I was like joining the crowd, right?
Well, I was all about my endorphin high came from the dancing.
Nice. So and a lot of people feel too inhibited to dance without the drugs and the alcohol. And that's kind of how I used to be.
Honestly, was pathetic because I would just arrive at the club, go straight to the dance floor and just dance all night. And I drank like beers and stuff because I was thirsty, not because I was trying to, this was before water bottles were the thing. So
we never drank water. Think about it. When we were growing up, we never drank water except out of a hose or something. It's crazy.
Which makes me question, do we really need to drink all this
as
water?
As much as we are, especially out of a plastic water bottle, but that's
because
another episode.
Official advice, I question that advice.
Exactly.
Now, if it's coming from a governmental agency with an abbreviation, you probably want to do the opposite.
That's exactly how I live, like the opposite, because I've learned that the hard way. But I forgot to mention when I really had that turning point is when I definitely need to quit drinking. I had that night, I overdid it. The next morning I had this horrible anxiety and I had clients that day and I was like, oh my gosh, like I had already learned the hair of the dog that bit you. Do you know what that is?
Mm,
If you're feeling something, you just have more of it. So you go
mm,
have a beer, So I went to the store at like 7 a.m. to buy a bottle of wine because I was so anxious. And I'm like, I actually canceled my clients. I was like, there's no way I can do that. But I was like, I can't feel this. Like, I feel so horrible because I overdid it. And I went to the store at 7 a.m. and bought a bottle of wine, and I drank it at that early. And I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like, that was a huge turning point for me. Um, but I had an energetic shift. Like that's what I feel is like, this was the first time, because I'd tried to quit several times before, but this is the spiritual recovery part, is when we're doing all the spiritual work, when we're doing the shadow work, when we're going out of our way to raise our vibration. Like, I teach law of attraction, and when we're actually doing things to set ourselves up for success vibrationally, these addictions start to, like, our energy shifts. We're no longer a match to these lower vibrational substances, even if it's a food, if it's a toxic food, right? Because a lot of our food's toxic, right? It's not
mhm.
real. There's not a lot of real food that they sell at the stores. So,
Not in this country.
not in this country at all. And we got all the extra chemicals to add too. Let's make you sicker. But yeah, so that stuff, addictions begin to naturally fall away from you when you do the spiritual recovery work, which is
Yes,
why I teach
yes.
that, because our vibration is so high, we don't match that anymore. And I had this definite energetic shift, and that's what I teach one-on-one with clients is how to do this for yourself. And so you don't have to rely on AA. Like, I think we talked about this in the last time we chatted, where I don't call it alcoholism. I don't call myself an alcoholic, because I will not, because it's against my spiritual beliefs. But listen, guys, if AA works for you, go do whatever works for you. I'm huge on that. Whatever makes you feel like is a great tool. For me, I tried AA. It was awful. Like, I am is the most powerful words. It's the creative. We're in creator mode. We are powerful creators. So when we say I am, and then anything we say after that, we're creating that in our lives. So I will not say I am an alcoholic. I
Mhm.
will say I'm someone who used to have a bad relationship with alcohol. That's it. I'm not going to say I'm an alcoholic. Um, because I'm not going to recreate that story and create that in my reality currently, because I'm no longer that person. That's not my identity. I'm no longer that person who used to order red wine when she went to lunch or dinner, every time she went out. Like, it's not an option. That's no longer my identity. And we can make goals for ourselves. Okay, I'm going to quit drinking for 30 days. It's not about goals, you guys. This is an energetic shift, because if you make a goal that you're going to do something for 30 days, okay, now you reached your goal. Okay, I'm gonna diet until I hit this goal of I want to be 140 pounds. That's my goal weight, right? Well, guess what? You get to your goal weight, then what happens? You backslide. You start getting back into those old habits again. This needs to be like a lifestyle change. This is your new identity. You're no longer the person that made those bad food choices. You're no longer the person that made that drank every day like I did. But yeah, when I bought that gift bag, that was a big wake up call, because that's what I was going to say. I bought it. I bought it, the alcohol, and I was so embarrassed to be at the store at 7 a.m. buying alcohol. I bought a gift bag. That's the part that I didn't finish, because I'm like, I'm going to a party later, blah, 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 and so I put it in, I bought a gift bag with it. It's not for me, right? And that was just like, oh my gosh, this is so pitiful and
So
depressing.
what happened to me is in my 40s, I started to get more migraines.
Mhm.
And I believe this is hormonal, actually. But I could not tolerate alcohol. Have one, I would have sips and my head would start hurting. So
Think about what you're saying. It is hormonal, because there's nothing that destroys your hormones as much as alcohol, and I'm 50, so I had all those problems too. I had the migraines. I developed autoimmune, and I think you remember I've gotten over my autoimmune. Part of it was getting rid of alcohol, but a big part of it was changing my diet and getting rid of the stuff the government tells you to eat, right? So I'm a pure carnivore, and all of my problems went away. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. But a lot of people want to keep their processed foods, and they don't want to eat real food. Like, I eat meat and eggs and beef tallow. You can have
Mhm.
butter, you can have fish, chicken, and all of
So,
these
so
things is
what
real food.
happened, I think that vibrationally, it was incompatible with me anymore.
Yes.
And so I stopped drinking. And then I noticed how much people were drinking around me, and how
Mm.
I was looking at my Facebook feed, and oh, mommy needs a drink and mommy needs wine. And I was like, this is really disturbing. Like, why are we pushing this all the time? Because I had taken myself out of that whole alcohol drinking thing. And now, like, I have a drink maybe once a month, but if people are drinking around me, I don't care if you are, but doesn't mean
Yeah,
I have to.
exactly. And that's, and people will ask you, oh, why aren't you having a drink? And, I just say, well, I don't need to drink to have fun. It's just, it's interesting because I'll never say that I have a problem with drinking to anybody. I'm just like, I don't like the way it makes me feel. I don't like
Mhm.
the way it makes me feel. Maybe in a moment, I'm not gonna lie, like, we know that it's fun while we have that buzz, but that's so temporary. Like, those few hours that it feels good compared to the next day that it feels bad, or the sleep that we lost. I just think it's a big trade-off, and that's a decision for everyone to make personally, because I also don't think everybody needs to quit.
But also for me, it would make me tired and sleepy, which I don't need to be more tired and sleepy. I want to be awake and energetic. So that doesn't work for me either.
Yeah, it made me
So
awake and energetic, though, so that wasn't a
yeah, I'm the opposite. So
that's a good
so
sign, though.
yeah, so it's probably a blessing that you were a coach, because it was showing you that you had a problem and it was a matter of integrity. So um what happened then? Like, how did you actually become sober?
Well, like, that gift bag experience was a big wake up call, and
Embarrassment.
yeah, and I just started applying all the things that I know, all the law of attraction stuff. Because once I woke up and was no longer in denial, and I knew I was already teaching law of attraction, so I was like, I just applied all the things to keep my vibration high, and like you said, I was no longer a vibrational match. I started to get these rashes from it. It was crazy. I start like headaches, the migraines, like you're saying, um,
Mhm.
female problems, because it was just like my body started rejecting it. And that was from raising my vibration, becoming no longer a
Mhm.
vibrational match to it. Just like you said, by the way, there are people who've had like near death experiences and they have this like crazy spiritually transformative experience. They can no longer tolerate alcohol after they come back. They lost their tolerance. So there really is something to that, and that's why I teach spiritual recovery. The more we raise our vibrations, these addictions are not going to be a vibrational match, and so that's what really I'm teaching people, and how to do it on their own, so they're not dependent on me or any programs or anything like that.
And also, I wanted to mention something I learned recently is if you're going into menopause and you're not creating hormones anymore, the result of that is anxiety.
100%.
So you will be feeling a lot of anxiety. Now, for me, I don't have that problem because I've been practicing meditation for 15 years, and
Nice.
I do Reiki consistently, and I do all these things. And I know when I was going through the migraine period that if I got riled up, I got a migraine.
Hmm.
So I learned to not get to that point and regulate my nervous system, calm myself down before I got to that point of no return.
That's so good. Yeah. And that's just practice, right? A lot of people are like, I can't meditate. Well, that's one of the things I teach too, is like, we you can't afford not to meditate. Like, if you say you don't have time, then you need to do it twice as much, actually. It's so true, right? Like, because it sets your whole day up for a better day. And yeah, it's really important. But yeah, everything you're saying, I agree 100%. And we really need to look at what we're putting in our bodies, what were, and I'm not saying everybody needs to go carnivore, but if you have autoimmune, look into it. All my autoimmune, all the stuff that's supposed to be irreversible, gone. I was having autoimmune flare-ups constantly. It was like whack-a-mole. I had one problem after another, and I'd already
Let's
quit
talk
drinking.
about that, because you mentioned that the connection between autoimmune disease and alcohol use. So what's the connection there?
I don't know. No, I'm not sure that was it. It was more the food for me, but I had
Mm,
already quit. I had already quit drinking alcohol, actually. But what I can tell you is my mom, I think it was this evil trifecta. So we had COVID happen. I did not get vaccinated or anything like that, but I did have COVID before the vaccine. Um, I think that whole thing was a collective trauma for everybody, just the whole situation of the lockdown and everything. So I think I had that trauma. My mom developed blood cancer right around there after she got vaccinated. And then she ends up dying the same year of these two rare blood cancers that shows up out of the blue. Very stressful time in my life. Then she dies on Christmas Day, 2021. And that's when it triggered this autoimmune. So let's talk about stress and trauma and autoimmune.
mhm,
I think it was that. But then I had the food issue. Like I was starting to develop food allergies. Is that from the stress? Is that from the trauma? Is that from COVID? Because because I think COVID was real and it was really nasty. It was not supposed to be in our bodies. It was created in a lab. So I think having this in my body and then all this trauma at the same time, my body was like, they call it mast cell activation syndrome. I think my whole body was inflamed. I was flaring, everything was flared up. And I developed all of these food allergies because my gut, your nervous system's out of whack, it affects your gut microbiome. So my gut, and then the cure was for me being on carnivore, and like my face was blowing up from everything that I ate. I'd wake up in the morning and my whole face would be puffy, my eyes would be swollen shut, and I didn't know, not one doctor, nobody. I went to so many doctors, and nobody told me that it was food related. Nobody guessed that. They were giving me all these prescriptions and prescription creams, but it was food. And I actually had a psychic tell me, two psychics told me, this is food. You're having you have a toxic buildup, and from things that you're eating. And unfortunately for me, it was vegetables, and I love vegetables. I was almost a vegetarian, but they have natural defense chemicals in them. I was eating organic, and I was made me really sad because I still love vegetables and I can't eat them. So that's something to look into. So as soon as I quit the vegetables, it went away. I wasn't eating processed foods. I was a very healthy person and controlled what I ate. I'm a controlled addict is what I call myself. I could, even because if I wanted to have that donut, I'm going to eat the whole box of donuts. So I just didn't start. That's the abstinence factor. But I do know that hormones are affected by alcohol. It destroys your endocrine system. And my migraines did go away when I quit drinking alcohol. I never had a migraine again. So that's something. And I slept great. I felt so much better when I quit drinking, but then that trauma happened, and then I had the autoimmune issues, and all that's gone. All of it. Now, if I eat something that I shouldn't eat, I get a flare up though. So it's like, I've learned to love to eat this way. I feel amazing. I've never had so much energy. By the way, my hormones are depleted. At 50, I got some lab work done. I just
mhm,
started bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Just started
mhm.
it. But they were like, how are you even alive? You have like no hormones. And they're like,
Me
how do you have so
too.
much energy? How do you have so much energy? And I'm like, I think it's my diet, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the only way to replace those hormones is hormone replacement therapy, but not the synthetic crap. Get the bioidentical. We have
Mhm,
to replace the stuff, because even on the carnivore diet, which is supposed to, raise your testosterone levels, I'm sorry, our bodies aren't going to make stuff that gets diminished. It's part of the aging process. We
mhm.
have to replace it. We just have to, or else we're going to have these, anxiety. All my friends are going through the same stuff. We're all the same age, right? We're
Mhm.
all they were all having major anxiety, panic level anxiety and then what do? They're drinking alcohol to calm down and making it worse. It's a horrible cycle.
No, the solution, if you get your hormones tested with your doctor, get your blood work done, find out where you're at, I'm turning 52 on Monday.
Oh,
My
wow. You look so young. I've never guessed that.
So my doctor's like, "Oh, everything looks pretty good, but you don't have any hormones."
None.
And I was
Until
like,
I
"That
was
can't be good."
No, and it does cause anxiety, and a lot of people don't realize, and then it messes with your endocrine system, your thyroid, and it's just
Yeah.
you really want to get it tested. And unfortunately, in the United States, it's not made easy. It is expensive, and I can tell you that's why my friends aren't doing it, is because it's so expensive.
But
It's
listen, are you going to spend the money on alcohol, or are you going to spend the money to get your lab work done and find out exactly what's going on in your body?
Amen, sister. Exactly. Like,
It's all what you focus on
what are
and
your
what you want to
priorities?
spend what's your priorities? What do you want to spend money on?
Health. There's nothing more important than health. And it's so funny because
Mhm.
I always took my health for granted until I had the autoimmune problems. I was always just like, whatever, like people overreact or it's psychosomatic. And then when I had it going on, I was like, holy crap. Like I said, it was like whack-a-mole. I just had one problem after another.
Mhm.
I'd figure something out and I'd get something new. It's because my body was inflamed. And I had this mast cell activation syndrome. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I felt so much compassion for people. It was like, I never really realized how horrible it is. They say that when somebody who's healthy has 1,000 wishes, somebody who's not healthy only has one, to be
Yes,
healthy again.
exactly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's
So
horrible.
number one thing is your health. That's the
Number one.
number one thing. When that starts to deteriorate, it affects all other areas of your life. And that's why I have this podcast, because I have people like you to share your experience and your wisdom. Not only you've gone through it, but you're helping people through it. And so this podcast is here to give solutions, to give options to people. And so, yeah, everything is connected. And,
Yeah.
we talk about alcohol effect on the brain. What about your liver?
So that was the one thing, like I was, I knew that one. Like that was the one thing we all know. But I just was like, well, I'll just take some supplements, cancel it out. And it's not how it works. It's not how it
There's
works,
the
guys.
denial again.
Denial. Um, it also causes 7 different types of cancer that we know of. 7 different types: breast cancer, colon cancer, the 2 big ones. And they don't put that on the alcohol bottles. Like, like on a cigarette pack, there's all these warnings. They don't
Yeah.
warn you about cancer. A lot of people aren't aware that it causes cancer. You know what it reminds me of? We're too young for this, but back in the 50s, the tobacco industry paid doctors and stuff to say that like cigarettes were healthy and to prescribe them. They were prescribing cigarettes to patients back in the day. And that's kind of what it reminds me of with alcohol. Like we're still like you mentioned, oh, we'll have a glass of wine and that's a mommy juice or whatever people say. And wine
Mhm.
is basically just fruit salad, and all these little jokes people I see it all. Like that helped keep me in it because everyone's joking about it and everyone's showing their highlights on Facebook and Instagram. They're not showing their freaking hangovers or their anxiety in the middle of the night, like they're not showing that part of it. There's a dark side, you guys, that you're lying and you're lying. It's
Yeah.
not all fun. It's not all fun.
So I love watching renovation shows on, like HGTV and stuff. And you see these people build these bars in their homes that they're like spending $6,000 or $10,000 on a bar. And I'm thinking, y'all are alcoholics.
100%. Like, but they don't see it. Or let's say they have a bad relationship with alcohol. They have a bad, yeah. I don't know. I just have that. I don't like labels for some reason, that because I just know how like labels will just create that in your reality. So I try not to ever call anybody that, even though they might have all the signs,
If you're
all the
spending
red flags.
thousands of dollars on a bar and that's your number one
They got they got they
part
got they got a bad relationship with
of the
alcohol. Yeah,
renovation, there's a problem.
there might be a problem. Yeah,
There might
exactly.
be a problem here.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, and all that the other things they could do with that money for sure. That's something that you
Yeah.
guys can do too. Is anyone listening? There's apps out there that show you how much money you'll save, even if you don't even have problems with it. it's a lot of money. Like, do you know how cheap my restaurant bills are now? Because I'm not drinking alcohol. Because they're
Yes.
the markup is crazy, and gosh, like I just the app was showing me how much money I spent because I would at least have like a bottle. I would buy a bottle every day of red wine. And that sounds like a lot, but that's so easy to do. And I know a lot of your listeners would like, oh my gosh, a bottle of wine, but it's so easy when you're with your friends and you're just drinking. It's so easy to drink a bottle of red wine or white wine. I'm just saying red wine because that was mine. So you're thinking like that adds up. Like let's say I got cheap wine, $20 a day, like 20 bucks a day. That adds up.
Mhm.
So get
Mhm.
one of those apps. It's very motivating. It's very motivating to it tracks how much money you save.
Do the math.
Oh yeah, you can just do it in your head.
Keep track of how many times you're buying alcohol, how much it costs in the restaurants. Start adding it up.
Sometimes I would go to a restaurant just for a reason to an excuse to have a glass of wine. Hey, Spencer, my son, want to go out to dinner? Because I really wanted wine. I didn't have anything. So like then I'm spending money on my food, his food,
Mhm.
my alcohol. And then I would always do this little trick like, oh, well, I'm just going to get a bottle because it's cheaper than getting it by the glass. If I got 2 glasses at the restaurant, so I would order a bottle and they would cork it up for me and I would take the rest home, so, but because it's cheaper, not because I have a
So
problem.
if you're doing that and going to the restaurant with an excuse to drink, add that to the cost
Mhm.
of what you're
100%.
paying. Include the dinner
The dinner
with the
cost.
with the drink because that's what's costing you.
Because I don't have that urge to go out to dinner as much anymore because I don't have that excuse. I don't need that excuse to go drink. So you're 100% right, Tina. You got to add
So
that to the cost because I would
I
not have been going if I didn't want that wine.
I have a question about because you were a functional alcoholic.
Mhm.
Um, so that's even harder because you were able to run businesses and make money and you never really hit like rock bottom where you lost everything.
Never.
So what would your advice be for someone who's a functional alcoholic is probably in denial about it, but their family probably notices there's a problem. What can the family member do at all to help that person?
You know, I'm being honest. This is like it's really difficult. Listen to your. I mean, like try really if you're listening to the show and your family members have said something, and if anything I said is a little bit of a wake up call, like I even tried to switch to organic wine at, like, oh, well, that's going to be healthier. You're like, we try so hard. If you're trying really hard to keep alcohol in your life, even though somebody's told you, like maybe you act different or it bothers them, or maybe you notice you're getting in a fight with your spouse, and like more argumentative when you drink, like those are all signs like that it's not working for you in your life. Even if you can run your business, like it really does affect your relationships. And just really ask yourself, just be honest with yourself, do some meditations, listen to a bunch of podcasts from people who've recovered, and listen to what they say and see if it relates to you. Because this is the one time, because I'm always like, oh, focus on the positive. But when it comes to quitting an addiction, I want you to focus on the negative. Oh, it causes
Hmm.
cancer. Oh, it causes insulin resistance and weight gain. Like, I lost 20 pounds when I quit drinking alcohol and I wasn't even trying. It was just because, and it wasn't because I was drinking that much alcohol, like to make in calories. What it was is it creates insulin resistance, and that's what causes the weight gain. Okay.
Hmm.
Like you're actually making yourself a pre-diabetic because you're having this constant insulin spikes from the alcohol.
Hmm.
So I would say like it's such a it's self-healing for the most part. Someone telling an addict doesn't do much because they really have to come to this self-realization.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of it's just going to be from listening to people who are going to be relatable to you. And that's why I say listen to some of these podcasts, because what we do when we don't want to quit is we hear someone say something negative about alcohol and we just, I want to listen to that, and we turn it off. We keep scrolling, whatever we're doing. So go, if you want to test yourself, take 30 days off. Let me know how that goes. Take a week off. Geez, like if most of us couldn't even quit a week, without, something's going to come up. Oh, well, I have this party to go to. Well, why do you have to drink just because there's a party? I mean, you
Mhm.
might have a problem. So test yourself, take some time off and see how you do. And you're going to get better in social situations. It takes some practice. Look, my whole life, I was drinking every time I went somewhere, like to a party or whatever. So I had to
Mm.
learn to have fun without it. There's a learning curve. There is.
You might need to get new friends.
I had a lot of friends drop me. Be okay with that,
Mhm.
because guess what?
Yeah,
If they drop you because you quit drinking alcohol,
they weren't your
number one,
friend.
it's about them. It's not about you. It's because you're their mirror at that point, and you're showing them something they don't want to look at.
Mhm. So my friends, we're all Reiki trained. We're all very spiritual. We're very aware, and no one's drinking every day. We don't go to bars for fun.
Hmm.
We go thrift shopping. We do Reiki shares. We'll have lunch together or breakfast. We're not drinking. That's not part of our friendship, our social, activities.
I love it. And yeah, I got a lot of new friends. And yeah, not everybody's going to want to be your friend anymore, but you're going to get the right friends
Yes, yes. And it really matters who you hang out with.
for sure.
And if you're trying to, stop drinking or drink less, you cannot be hanging out with people who are constantly drinking. That's a mismatch.
It is a mismatch. And I'm going to tell you, this is the perfect question for your listeners to ask themselves if they're hanging out with the right people or not, because we do become who we hang around, you guys. Um, if you became more like that person, and you do this with each person in your life, if I became more like so and so, would I be okay with that? If I became more like them, because that's what's going to happen. So you need to really sit with each person in your life and ask yourselves if you'd be more okay becoming more like them, because that
Well,
is what will happen as long as you continue to hang out with them. And so
right.
you're going to be like, yeah, they've got a lot of great qualities. I'm great hanging out with them. But if you have people in your life that you don't want to be like, you should not be hanging out with them. Sometimes it's family members and we get kind of stuck, but I'm talking about friends.
Even you can distance yourself from those family members. It
Agreed.
can be done,
Agreed.
can be done. But look around you, and if these people are bringing you down, if they're against your goals of improving your life, these people are not for you. You need to find your people, find your tribe. And I feel Reiki practitioners in general, I usually you love those people
Hmm.
because we are on the same page. We understand energy, we know healing, we know how to meditate through Reiki. It's a meditation
Hmm.
and it's a sacred ceremony too. So the more you practice, the better you're going to be at it.
What,
So,
what do you
well,
think about the Reiki practitioners who drink?
um,
There's
most
a
of
lot of
us.
them out there.
Oh, really?
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I am always like, I think when we're doing any type of energy work, that, you know, we should not do things that lower our vibration. Just even like with my clients, I always try to set myself up for each client and make sure that I've done things in between clients. It's good spiritual hygiene, right?
Right.
To clear our energy. And so I do stuff before, I do stuff after each client. And I just think that's so important. If somebody doesn't have good spiritual hygiene, I'm not going to go to that practitioner.
Right. Oh, well, yeah. I have heard of Reiki practitioners that have an alcohol problem.
Mhm.
It's not common that I know of unless they're secret about it and I don't know about it, but um, it's a problem. If you're a Reiki master and you're working on people, some of those people are very intuitive and will pick up on your problem.
Yep.
So that's how I found out about one of the Reiki masters that had an alcohol problem was through one of her clients. And then I had a friend who's no longer my friend because I confronted her about her drinking. She's also a Reiki practitioner and she wanted to continue training. And I said, you need to fix this problem first. And she stopped talking to me.
I mean, but good for you. We need to speak our truth. That's living in a heart-centered way, right? We have to speak our truth. Being a people pleaser never helps anyone. And maybe even though because I've lost friends by speaking my truth, and
Hmm.
not everyone can receive the truth. But guess what? You still said it. You probably planted a seed, and that's going to be way more helpful for her. Like it's in there now, and so that's going to be something that we might not see the immediate effect of our really good truth advice, but eventually down the road you did help her.
Yeah. So, Mary Beth, can you share your website and where people can contact you? And what are you up to now? You have any new exciting projects or books, or what's happening with you?
Well, the main thing that I think is most transformational that I do is my one-on-one coaching, because I'd have group coaching, but it's like a lot of the root cause is this, things that are our programming and our belief system. And it's really hard to help people really transform when it's group, like it's one-on-one is the key. And I do offer a completely free, like 20 to 30-minute Zoom call with me personally, where we decide if coaching is right for you. Like, you can tell me a little bit about your life, what your story is, what goals you have. Like with coaching, there's always going to be something that you're trying to change and shift in your life. And sometimes it's addiction, sometimes it's relationship help. I help people with relationships a lot. And a lot of what I learned is at the root cause of almost every problem that we have is some type of addiction. Like I said earlier, with negative thinking, overthinking,
Hmm.
that might be part of it. And then with relationships, a lot of it is people who just are stuck in toxic patterns, that and it's very helpful for people to see it from the outside. It's hard to see things when we're in it, right? So one-on-one coaching, it's totally free. It's day1lifecoaching.com, DAYONE lifecoaching.com. And, just click on there. You'll see it when you get on my website, and we just have that little chat. And if coaching's not right for you, like let's say we establish it's not going to, it's not a great match, I'm usually able to guide you somewhere else to somebody who's going to be a better match for you. Maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's a totally, completely different, you know, thing altogether. But I can
Hmm.
usually, maybe it's a psychic that I'm going to send you to, but I can usually be like, this person will be perfect for you, and guide you
Hmm.
elsewhere.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because God bless those psychics that told you it was food, because nobody else was telling you that. And that's why these people who are intuitive, they're a gift.
Absolutely.
They will tell you things that nobody else is telling you. It's because they're tapping into, that truth, that higher truth.
When I was blaming my hormones, but interestingly enough, it seemed like it was cyclical in a way. But let's think about this. I crave certain foods certain times of the month. So it did kind of go
Hmm.
together, but it wasn't the hormones, it was the food. And
Hmm.
and you're exactly right. Like, because I went to functional doctors, I went to naturopaths, I went to I went to Reiki healers, I went to everybody, but just because someone knows Reiki, I know you're very intuitive, but not everybody
Right.
is.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was really tricky. I never would have guessed food allergy myself. And now when somebody has a problem, it's the first thing I'm wondering, because I have clients who have issues. Like, I have a 19-year-old client right now who was on Prilosec for years for like heartburn. We changed her diet around. It's completely gone. She has a doctor. Like, what? Prilosec, you're not even supposed to stay on that stuff. It's for like heartburn and things like that.
Hmm.
And it was the
Hmm.
food she was eating. Doctors don't suggest these things. They don't suggest a lifestyle change. It's
Yeah,
it's
and you need
it's
to
really
pay
sad.
attention with food, how you feel, and any symptoms you have after eating a food.
Our bodies are a subconscious mind, and they are smarter than us most of the time. They are telling us if we just listen to it. Yeah, like even with my toxic relationships, if I'm around somebody who's not good for me, I get nauseous. It's my subconscious mind knows, even though like they could be acting perfectly. It's the energy. So that's what I've learned. That's how my body shows me this person is
Yes.
not good for you. And
Yeah.
I've let it play out just to make sure that I was right every time. It's been the same thing. It's so I get nauseous around people who, and there's a myth about law of attraction, like, oh, well, you won't attract what you are only, but we don't only attract what we are. If you
Mm-mm.
have an attractive energy, you're going to attract all kinds. That doesn't mean, because you attracted a narcissist that you're a narcissist. Now, part of what happened to me though is I did judge narcissists still. So just as last thing I'm going to say is, you guys, we have to stop anything we judge. We create an energetic spark and we start attracting it. So if you don't want something in your life, stop judging it. If you want it to show up on your doorstep, be really judgy. It's going to be in your face 24/7. That create anything that we have an energetic spark with, good or bad, is going to be right in our face because we get what we focus on.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you, Mary Beth, for being on the show.
Thanks for
Uh,
having me.
I learned some things, new things too, and I think it's good to focus on vibration and everything is connected, and that's why this is about holistic healing. And you understand this, and we have to look at everything. We can't just look at just the physical or just the spiritual or just the mental or emotional. It's all connected.
It's all connected. You nailed it.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.